What's up, guys? In this video I'm going to be showing you guys my newest build. This is a FT Goblin and I have installed a autonomous flight controller into it that lets me do waypoint missions. It'll position hold, and I'm just going to explain everything about this build and hopefully inspire you guys to maybe build one yourselves or to just dive into autonomous flight and iNav, which is the firmware this board is running. So we'll take a look at the setup first, and we'll look at the hardware and the firmware, how they interact with each other in a little bit. Alright, so just real quick, this is an FT Goblin. I scratch built this entire airplane, so I had to cut the foam out by hand, which is why it might look a little messy. I only had one razor blade with me, and I just couldn't really get it to cut the foam as well as I'd hoped. But I made do, and we have the airplane now. So it took me about a day and a half to cut it all out, and then another afternoon to glue it all together. And it wasn't too bad. You could definitely do different platforms. Like, this is a very fast airplane. You could do a glider or a wing. It really depends on what you're trying to do. But for me, I want to go fast and I want to go far. And this is a very efficient plane, and I'll talk about the power setup in a bit. But looking a little bit closer at the airplane, we have typical 9-gram servos on each wing. The one over there had to get torn out because it wasn't centered properly. That's 100% my fault, and it should look a lot better if I built it right. So we have typical 9-gram servos for the control surfaces. We have a TBS Crossfire with an Immortal T antenna. I'm running Crossfire on my transmitter as well, because this is the best long-range system at the moment. You can definitely argue there's other systems, but for me it's been super consistent and I have had no issues with it. Then looking at our GPS, it's just a little BN 180 GPS. It's super cheap, about 10 bucks on Amazon, and it's pretty accurate. It does take a while to get a lock, but it has a battery built into it, so it boots up and it knows where it previously got a lock, so not too much of an issue there. Looking at our FPV setup, at the moment I do not have a video transmitter in this plane, but I plan on putting either a 1.2 or 1.3 system in it or a 2.4. I'm not too sure, but for the camera we just have a little micro turbo wing. This keeps the weight down, and it's a fairly good camera. Heard a lot of good things about it, and you know, it was readily available, so I just slapped it in there. Now, probably the most important part about this build is the flight controller, which you can see right here. It has all the wires coming out of it, and it is an iNav F411 or 411 flight controller running iNav. It's pretty good. It has 2 motor outputs, up to 5 servo outputs, so it has plenty of space for any type of airplane or wing you want to build. And it's very easy to configure. I will have a configuration video coming out very soon. But it allows you to do waypoint missions, position hold. It has a barometer built in, so I can do altitude hold as well. Just a very nice setup, and it's extremely small, and it fits right under the canopy really nicely. So now we'll look at the power system. I'm running a 30 amp 6S capable ESC right in the back here. You can't see it because the motor, or the frame is covering it. And then for our motor in the back here, let me just reposition. We have an Emax Eco motor. This is the 2400 kV version, so very efficient, and it still gives you a good amount of power when you really punch the throttle. So now for our battery, this is the interesting part, I think, that most people are not going to consider. This is rated up to a 4S 2200. This airframe can take up to that size of a battery. And I have a bunch of 1300s, which I will use for initial testing. But when I really want the long range and the long flight times, I have made this battery, which I will explain right now. So this is a 21700 4S 4200 milliamp hour lithium ion battery, and it looks really ghetto at the moment just because I've taped it up. But once I have access to a 3D printer, I will print a case for it, and it'll look really nice. But basically, the energy density of this is over 3 times the LiPo, and yet the LiPo is around the same size. It is a little bit bigger and the weights are a little bit different, but for the general size, this thing still fits in the aircraft, no problem. And I probably could have gone with bigger cells as well, but I wasn't sure if they were going to fit. So I just chose the 21700s, soldered them up in a 4S configuration, and this is what we have. Now I might go into a 6S configuration in the future if this does work very well, but these cells are capable of outputting 45 amps continuous, which is incredible, and the capacity is 4,200 milliamp hours, which is also really incredible. So this hopefully will give me around 45 minutes of flight time, hopefully maybe even an hour if I get some altitude and just glide around. So yeah, this is a very unique thing. I haven't seen too many people using these on airplanes, maybe because they're afraid of soldering batteries, but I've done it just because I know how to solder very well. So if I were to put a VTX on here, I would probably mount it around here, and you'd have a fully autonomous FPV airplane that is fully capable of autonomous flight and waypoint missions. So I hope you guys like the video. If you have any specific questions about the setup, or if you want to ask questions about your setup, please leave the comments down below. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one. With